Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. It's Saturday, July 27th, and this weekend I have a treat for you. You know how we answer questions every day on this program? Sometimes I go on other programs and do it, and I'm sort of like the color commentary, not so much the brain. And I was able to do that with my friends over at The Compound. Ben Carlson, who is the Director of Institutional Asset Management at Ritholtz Wealth. He and Duncan Hill, who's the Creative Director at Ritholtz Wealth, they co-host a program called Ask The Compound. What's so cool is because Ben is a CFA, a Chartered Financial Analyst. He does all this research on all the questions and he puts up cool charts and graphs. So today and tomorrow, we're going to air the episode of Ask the Compound where I was the guest. And today we're talking about something called the 4% rule.
Listen, I'm sure there are some people who actually follow the 4% rule religiously, but certainly not as many people as financial researchers would assume. So what do you think? This is like such a squishy question. It's a very important one for people. Like, how much do I actually need to retire? But one that I think a lot of people don't actually know until they get to the day where they say, I'm fine. I can do it. So how do you think through this framework?
I'm old, and so I grew up with the 4% rule sort of drilled into me. And I think, it's weird because we've just gone through this inflationary spike. So it used to be when I would say to people about 4%, it sounds great, but what if things go wrong? What if there's more inflation than you would expect, or your assets don't perform as you would expect, or I don't know, just something weird happens, and they'd look at you like you're crazy. So now at least we have the experience of yes, we can have inflation, and it can happen at the wrong time for people. I guess in my experience, when I was an advisor a million years ago, people wanted some thumbnail guidance, right? And
True.
I think that that's what the 4% rule is meant to do, which is just give me some framework so I don't blow through all my money.
Yeah, it gives you a baseline, right? Somewhere to start. You can go above or below that, but that's a good starting point.
Right. And so I'm a wimp, and I also very much am worried about bad things happening. So when I look ahead and I say, okay, well, what do we not do when we approach retirement, when we're looking for a funding goal? We probably don't have a great handle on how much we really need to spend. And Ben, I know that you just had a conversation with somebody where you're like, okay, spend a little bit more, live a little bit more in your life. And then sometimes I'll have conversations with people who are like that, where they've been very frugal their whole lives, and they come to retirement and they go nuts in the first few years of retirement, right? It's like the unleashing. So what I try to say is, you have to decide which is the mistake you're more comfortable making. Should I undershoot it? Should I withdraw a little bit less money from my portfolio every year, maybe 3 or 3.5%, and use a higher inflation rate than most people imagine? And worst case scenario is that I end up with more money late in life. Or do I want to live a little bit more today, make the mistake, and maybe run the risk of not looking great in my 80s? I'm the former. I like to be a little bit more conservative. So I leave it to you, Ben. I don't really believe in the 4% rule, but I feel much more comfortable saying let me look at 3.5%. That feels more comfy for me.
All right, you're the glasses half empty today. I'm going to be the glasses half full. So I always tell people, it's worth pointing out that the 4% rule is not set in stone, but it is a conservative rule by nature. It's trying to get you to the place where you just don't run out of money. It's the worst case scenario. So I think the main point is be flexible. I want to look at the other side. So Michael Kitces did one of my favorite studies on this, and he took a 60-40 portfolio, and he said over 30 years, he used every year as a starting point that you could. So he did this 4% rule and shows all the different range of outcomes you can get using all these different assumptions. And he said, on average, using the 4% rule historically, which, past is not prologue, so that's the caveat, on average, a retiree finished after 30 years nearly tripling their original principal after taking out all of their 4% spending each year and adjusting it for inflation. So he's saying that the 10% of the time you did end up with less than you started with, but most of the time you actually end up with more using the 4% rule. I think the biggest thing here is take a little Jill and a little Ben and balance. And if things are better than expected in that scenario, hey, things are way better than I could have thought of. I didn't get a bear market right when I retired. Maybe you can turn the dial up and spend more. If things are worse and you retire right into the teeth of a 30% bear market, maybe you dial things back. And that's the point, is that you can't just follow the spreadsheet. You have to be flexible and say, if things are going really well, I'm going to give more to charity, or I'm going to go on more vacations or give to my kids or whatever it is. And if things are really bad, maybe we cut back that year and we do one vacation instead of two.
And can I just pop in one extra thing? Because I love that idea. Like, be flexible, know yourself, and be realistic about what are we really going to spend? Because sometimes people will run numbers and they'll look at it and they're like, well, I really won't spend 12 grand a month. I'm sure it'll be 10. Use the number you actually think you're going to be spending. And that's probably the number you're going to be spending. It's not going to be, I don't know a ton of people in the first 10 or 15 years of retirement, presuming they're healthy and everything's good, that all of a sudden they want to be like, yeah, I want to pull back. No, you want to relax. You want to enjoy yourself. You want to have some fun. And you want to have some fun today and you want to have some fun in the future.
The Ben and Jill 60-40 portfolio. How's that?
I like that.
Lean a little Ben, but you got a little Jill for the just in case.
Just in case.
Like
All right.
1% my portfolio?
No Oatly, Duncan. Next one.
Okay, up next we have a question from Ryan. My dad and I, this is a cool question. My dad and I have been listening to your podcast for over a year now and love it. I'm currently a minor league baseball player and have about an hour of free time every day where I feel like I could work online or make some money somehow. I've looked into rental properties but don't want to add to the stress of playing baseball. I feel that I'm productive and capable of making money online somehow, and I'm super interested in investing. So I was wondering if you guys had any ideas on how to make extra income with about 7 to 8 hours of work a week.
This is interesting, especially for a minor league baseball
He
player
didn't
whose
say what
schedule
kind
is-
of position he plays.
I know. All right, what do you guys think? Let's just guess what his position is.
Well,
he's
he mentioned stress, so maybe he's like a relief pitcher.
Oh,
That's
I
about
thought it
as
was going
stressful as
to.
it
I thought it was
gets.
going to say a catcher.
Okay. Yeah.
If he's a pitcher, he's got
Managing-
even more time for side hustles on his hands because he's not pitching every day.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I
so
started
not a
my
pitcher.
blog as a side hustle that turned into a real job with a new firm. But I think it's probably harder than you think to make money on the internet for most people. I would say the place that I would start is do something that you're actually interested in. And don't start with, I'm going to make so much money doing this. Start with, here's something I'm interested in. And if it ends up making me more money, then good. If not, I'm at least doing something that interests me.
Yeah, I'm thinking like you have such a great credential. How can we use this credential? Right? So I'm going to make this up. Let's say you live in Toledo because you play for the Toledo Mudhens. Did you like how I just flipped that out of here?
That was nice. Midwest. I like it.
So, and let's say that there's like some part of your town where people will pay to have you coach their kids, their little snotty kids. And they'll pay good money. And maybe that's the way you can leverage. I know it sort of feels, it probably may be like, oh, I want to do something with my stocks or this or that. But like really the best and easiest path is to use a talent or a credential you have and leverage that for a few hours a week. This is probably not that hard for you. And maybe it would actually make you feel really good about the fact that where you are. And of course, just in case you were thinking about how to invest, and don't spend 7 or 8 hours day trading. That would be my only caution.
Okay, as someone who has kids playing sports now and getting into like the travel side of things, your answer is perfect because parents will pay anything. And they're all delusional, and they think their child is going to be great. So whatever you're going to charge for your baseball training, like double it, because parents will pay it. Like, I'm going to make your son the best Little League pitcher or catcher or right fielder that there is. That's a perfect answer, right?
Right? It's going to be
Yes.
awesome. And look, here's my credential. I'm in it. I'm in the game.
And if he wants to do it online, guess what? I'm going to give tips online, right?
Oh,
to
yeah.
Yeah.
show me your swing. Up, your right foot is move it up a few inches. Like, he could do it that way if he wanted to. But yes, I think that's a great idea.
All right. We're all in.
Yeah. I did a baseball camp at High Point University when I was a kid. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, he could start his own little camp on the side or something.
I like it.
Very
All right.
nice.
Next question.
Okay. Up next, we have my wife and I are 45. We have 2 young kids and both have special needs and are very settled in a private school that is helping them greatly. However, we live 50 minutes from this school and the commute is greatly affecting them, so we are looking to move closer to the school. I'm fully aware that now is not a great time to move. We locked in a 2.75% rate during COVID and have $300,000 left on our house valued at $650,000. The next house would be around the $1 million mark with rates over 6%. To make things more complicated, for vocational/schooling reasons, we will likely only own this home for 5 years at the most. This sounds complicated.
This is a complex one. Wait, you got more, right, Duncan? Yeah.
For context, I earn, yeah, sorry. We have a lot of long ones today. For context, I earn $500,000 per year. We have $700,000 in a brokerage account and the equity in our current home. What is the optimal strategy from a down payment and term perspective, given the short time we will own the property, the current rates, and the flexibility we have with the potential use of our brokerage money? We could do a minimum down payment to keep building gains in our brokerage account, or we could liquidate our brokerage and put down a large down payment with a very short-term arm with a very high monthly to potentially pay it off in the 5 years we would own it. Is there a better strategy to get this done? What am I missing here? I've heard many conflicting opinions from financial advisors.
Okay, so this is a very complex situation. So they're trying to think through two options, right? They know they have to move. They know it's not ideal to move, but they have to. This is for their kids. They're going to do anything they can. And they want to know big down payment or more flexibility. I think there's a third one here, because my rule is typical. Ben's rule of housing is if you're not living in for a minimum of 7 to 10 years, because of all the frictions involved, you have to pay to buy and sell, it's probably not worth it. So why wouldn't they consider renting?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, my man. I literally rent.
We're in the same
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, if you think you're going to end up moving back to the area 50 minutes away, maybe you rent your house and rent in the new place, or sell it, collect your equity, and rent for 5 years. But to go out and buy another home in this environment, I think you would be nuts.
And then turn around and sell it in 4 or 5 years.
No, not worth it.
Right.
So
yeah. Hold on to the old one if you want, and rent it out for the 2.75 rate. Rent a new house closer to the school, and then you can still keep building the equity.
Yeah. Just one other thing, because they said 2 special needs kids. I hope, and maybe you have done this already just because you're in this world, but I presume you've done estate planning and that you're very clear that a special needs trust must be established so that when your kids inherit your assets, they are not precluded from receiving benefits. So I know that that's what you've done already, but just in case you haven't, don't forget to do that.
Right. Sounds like he's talking to financial advisors,
Yeah.
getting conflicting opinion. But I guess the other thing, I would prefer if they're say, well, too bad, I'm not renting. There's no rentals in our area that'll fit our family. I'm going to buy. So what should I do? I would say I prefer the flexibility. I don't know. I don't like the idea of totally wiping out the brokerage account.
I agree.
To put it in this illiquid asset that you're going to sell in a few years and you could lose some money on potentially. So I would keep the flexibility either way.
I
think renting
agree.
is the most flexible approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Renting is freedom.
And they mentioned conflicting opinions, but this isn't like a right or wrong thing, right? So, I mean, there's
No, this
always
is
gonna be
right or
different-
wrong. Ben is right. Okay. The advisor who's wrong.
You're right.
No, I think what's funny is, though, I've gotten conflicting opinions. What kind of advisors are these?
And
that
why
they
are you
didn't-
asking
they-
anyone other than Ben?
No, but I'm just saying that, what kind of advisors have not raised renting as a possibility? Or maybe they have, you're right, Ben. Maybe he's like, no way, I have to live somewhere. But I don't know. You can rent anywhere. You'll find something. I feel very confident. If you have more of an interest in investments and the economic winds that are blowing one way or another, you should really check out all the content that is created by the folks over at The Compound. We have a link on our website to our YouTube show, but everything is there, so you'll find it right there. So easy. Okay, thanks so much for listening. You can subscribe to us on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen. And as we like to remind you, we want you to do something nice for someone else today, because it's going to make that person feel better and it's going to make you feel better. It really is. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow.